Well, I've been paranoid since 2004 when the Myers study, the Metro Manila Earthquake Impact Reduction study came out, and that pointed to the damage to 40% of all of the buildings in Metro Manila and deaths of upwards of 30 plus thousand initially, and then an additional 18,000 from fire with over 100,000 injured. So since then, we have tried to fix our frameworks for governance and urban planning, but we've failed miserably in addressing all of the concerns raised by the original study.
At which parts have we failed miserably at, Paulo? We know that newer buildings, they always, when they try to sell you a unit in one of the buildings, they always show you, the earthquake, technology that they've applied, the slipping and sliding and swaying and all of that. Would this hold up to just a certain magnitude of earthquake?
Yes, the newer buildings are more resistant. The taller ones, the more upscale ones are resistant. The study identified that the most damage will be in the lower buildings. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, between 5 and 15 stories because of the nature of the structural system, while the taller ones will just sway in with the earthquake. But it also depends on where the buildings are being built. A lot of the buildings currently going up are buildings that are in zones that have been identified as high liquefaction areas, exactly the zones that the original Myers study 20 years ago almost identified that we should not build on.
All right, you mentioned high liquefaction area. I'm not so adept at all where these areas are, but I know for a fact that the reclamation area, like the Bay Area near Mall of Asia and Manila Bay, that area, there's a ton of buildings over there. They're not so high, but I'm assuming the engineers took into consideration that they are on reclaimed land. Would these buildings be extra high risk?
They're high risk still because reclamation areas as well as easements of rivers and creeks are high liquefaction. It's all been identified in the hazard maps that have already been made and distributed. So in modern development, real estate development, of course, the more expensive buildings or the higher end buildings are more robust. But the National Building Code is followed. It's been improved, but still needs an update. So currently, there's pending bills on the updating of the National Building Code, which is still stuck, if I'm not mistaken, in Congress or the Senate. So we need to relook our National Building Code, one. And then, of course, we need to impose to follow the National Building Code, which is not being followed. If you just going around the city, you know that it's not being followed, and that would lead to all of these disasters.
Right, Paulo, just a quick follow-up to that. What exactly are these amendments or additional things to the National Building Code that you would want to see on there?
Well, higher resistance to damage from earthquakes. That means you push the bar past the earthquake 8, and that means that you have to relook the structural design, and this is the job of the engineers. It can be done. It will add cost to the building, so we have to absorb that, and the real estate developers should push that, of course, to the buyers. But it's well worth the cost of additional security. That said, everything is not even all over the Metro Manila, and the following of the National Building Code is depending on the building official of each of the 17 LGUs in Metro Manila, all of whom are not equal in terms of following this code.
Okay, taking a look at Metro Manila, there are old cities, there are newer cities. If you happen to live in an old building, is there any way that you can restructure your building to be compliant with the National Building Code? Or, or if you're living there, are you kind of doomed already?
No. Engineers will tell you that you can retrofit building. My office is in a building in Ortigas, and it was retrofitted about 10 years ago. And there are ways to strengthen the columns, usually at the bottom, as well as some of the beams. So there are ways to retrofit. The cost is, of course, passed down to the owners of the units and the property. So it can be done. you can retrofit your buildings. The smart ones are doing that now. You can approach any certified civil engineer and structural engineer and ask them to do an assessment of your house or structure, and they can give you very professional advice on how to do it.
And just before we let you leave, your advice for those looking to buy new units, houses, buildings. I mean, how do we become smart about this?
Yes, try not to buy along riversides or in reclaimed areas, and get your properties from good developers. Of course, you can, if you have a relative who's a structural engineer, it's always best to consult. But you can also access all of these documents. The studies for the Myers study is available online. You can just open it up. You'll know there are maps to show you where the best places to buy property are in terms of hazard-free designs.